Mic check 1 2. What it do? Welcome back to the Mic Check podcast. This is T Word, the People's Champ. Thanks for tapping in. Today we're talking about the New Orleans Saints opening the season with a victory over the Tennessee Titans in New Orleans in the Superdome. But before we get into the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We appreciate that feedback. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. New Orleans Saints opened the season for the fifth year in a row with a win. This time it was at home, in front of a home crowd that was raucous. They were really into the game, and it's the debut of Derek Carr. So it's a big moment for this team as they try to move past the Drew Brees era. The last couple of seasons, unsuccessfully, they've tried to move forward, and it just seems like the quarterback position had been the area that they struggled the most. The defense would carry them in some spots. They had a lot of injuries to key players, but ultimately they just weren't able to be successful because they lacked stability at QB. In the first season after Drew Brees, you had Jameis Winston was a proposed starter, and he gets injured, and then the team kind of struggles. The next season they come in and you've got Andy Dalton in the mix, Taysom Hill, you've got Jameis Winston back in the mix coming off injury, and it just never felt like they could get it together, no matter how skilled the rest of the team was, and they kind of floundered. So the hopes were high for this season, knowing that we had a quarterback who's established himself as a pretty damn good player. So this game opens up on an unfortunate note. The Saints fumble the opening kickoff, and they give Tennessee 3 points off the rip. Now, that was actually a silver lining and a precursor to the way the rest of the game will go. First off, the Saints defense held the Titans to 5 field goals. The Titans made it to the red zone probably 3 or 4 different times, and they held them to field goals every time they got into scoring range. So that tells me that this defense knows how to bow its neck, flex his muscles, and keep you out of the goal line, especially when you have a player like Derrick Henry on the other side of the ball, and they just bullied up and stopped him. And it's not as if Ryan Tannehill isn't a threat to run and throw. So it's not like they just pinned their ears back and went after Derrick Henry. This team actually showed up and they covered everything. The pass defense was freaking amazing. The run defense held him in check. I believe he finished the game with 63 yards on maybe 16 carries. So that tells me he was eating a little bit, but they never let it get out of control. So in my opinion, that's what you want to see, consistently stopping the other team from making good things happen. And then on the flip side, you make some good things happen and try to just control the field, control the ball. There were times where the offense put the defense in bad spots and they were able to just push the Titans back, hold them to a field goal, and then get the offense better field position, or at least set it up where they're starting with the kickoff or something like that. Area of concern for me is kick return. I think Rashid Shaheed is good, but I think that sometimes he makes some decisions that don't seem to bode well, especially where if you do the touchback, you don't get the ball at the 25 anyway. So just go ahead and fair catch, get at the 25 instead of running it out and getting to the 22. And I get it, you're a big play guy, you want to make stuff happen, but that's just not the way to win games consistently. And good teams don't do that and make those bad decisions. But he is a young player, so maybe the special teams coach will work with him and develop that. Um, but let's talk more about the defense and then we'll shift into the offense. So defensively, you had Alontae Taylor in the slot. This is his first start there, and I thought he did okay. There's some things he's going to need to clean up because it's just not naturally his fit. And the way his body is constructed, he's not your typical slot guy. Slot guys are normally not very tall. They're more short, agile, slim at the body. This guy's tall and rangy, better at the outside. But I believe that Paulson Adebo played him in the preseason and earned his starting spot opposite Marshawn Lattimore. The Honey Badger came to play. He was making tackles, and last year, that was an area of concern early on, and he actually cleaned it up and became one of the better tacklers, and he carried that over into this year. Marcus May came up with an interception on a tip pass from Yidam Amadi. Um, and it was a tip play, and then Marcus May just like was in the right place at the right time. Could have got a PI on the play, but they let him play through it at that point. So shout out to them for making it happen, using that good old tip drill that your defensive back coaches teach you. And then at linebacker, Pete Werner, Demario Davis. When you don't really have to talk about your linebackers and then they lead the team in tackles, that tells you they just did their damn job and got up out of there. They didn't blow any assignments. They didn't do anything crazy. They just did what they need to do. The pass rush actually showed up early in the season for the first time in years. So this gives me great hopes for the offense in general. And it's not as if they could just pin their ears back and chase Tannehill. They actually had to play coverage and actually have to be concerned with the run and stuff like that, which showed a balanced effort defensively. And that's Dennis Allen's specialty, and it showed up. Flipping to the offensive side of the ball, the offensive line is going to be a struggle in the run game, even though we have Jamal Williams. And I think that he's a really dynamic and good player. If they don't block better and get the right lanes, he's not like Alvin Kamara where he's very slippery coming through the line. He kind of needs a little lane, and then he can hit the whole full speed and take off and make a play happen. You don't have Alvin Kamara who can seem like he's in the grasp of the other team and then just slip out of there and make a big play. So they're going to have to block different. And Trevor Penning got his ass kicked, starting left tackle who we drafted. And it's looking rough for him. Hopefully, second half, they kind of made some adjustments to add chip blocks and stuff like that. But we're not going to be able to do that every week. So I need to see him figure it out. I mean, he's a nasty guy in the run game, but in pass blocking, he's just so inconsistent. I don't know how long they can keep him there when you got a guy like Hurst who can move outside and then put Pete in at left guard and then try to figure it out. At least Hurst is one of those guys that just disappear on the day. Nothing good happens, nothing bad happens. He's just there and you don't call his name. And that's a great thing for offensive linemen. And maybe that's going to be the way to go if Penning doesn't show something better in pass blocking and more consistently, because again, you can't add an extra blocker and you can't chip every time. He's got to hold his own weight against high level pass rushers that tend to filter into the NFC South throughout the years. The receivers did what they had to do. Michael Thomas opens the first opportunity he has with a big 25-yard catch. He was consistent. He showed great hands. He took some hits and some weird tackles, and I saw him get right up, so he's not having any lingering effects of those injuries. 2 years removed, basically. Now he's finally healthy. I mean, really almost 3 years since he was actually really healthy. So I just feel like he's back to who he was, and he consistently showed. I mean, he showed some bursts. He showed that he could get separation. He got open when he needed to. Chris Olave, even though he got a little gimpy at one point in the game, he showed that he's really a number one threat. I believe he finished with over 100 yards receiving. And then Rashid Shaheed just takes the top off of defense. And you have to account for that. When you got a couple of guys that can stretch the field, and then a receiver that can just beat up the middle, and then a tight end who can make some things happen, I think it works. Now, save the last is going to be Derek Carr. Pretty good 300 yards, touchdown, one pick. I think he did what was necessary to win this game. I think that he's going to need to show more in the future to stamp this as his team, to stamp this as his job. I mean, the team gave him a good amount of money, so he's going to have to earn that check, because we can't just rely on the defense every week. But I feel like he has the cojones to do it. He just got to get a little bit more comfortable with how Pete Carmichael's going to call the games and find a way to get Derek Carr into his rhythm. And I think that's when you'll see this offense take off. And then, not to mention, in another 3 weeks, Alvin Kamara is going to be back in the lineup, and that changes everything, because now you have another matchup nightmare on the field that you could dump it to in the screen game. You can hand it to him, and once the running game gets rolling, that's going to make life very easy for Derek Carr, and maybe the offensive line will have fixed their issues by then. I didn't like the 7 penalties from the team, especially a couple on defense that were a little sketchy, but you still want to clean that stuff up and not leave it in the hands of the refs. But overall, I thought it was a good effort by the New Orleans Saints to come out with a victory, 16-15 to open the season. So it's a big who dat on Victory Monday. Tell me what you think. Did you watch any other NFL games? We will be recapping those later, but for now, I had to shout out my team. So until the next time, this has been T for the Mike Check Podcast, and I'm out. Peace.